shining the light on great jazz vocalists from everywhere. And today we are talking with not a vocalist, but a musician. Vocalists are musicians too. But we're talking with guitarist Brandon Scott Coleman. He and his trio will be playing for the Winter Jazz Series. So um, I wanted to get a chance to get to know him and let him tell us what to expect for the series this week. So, welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, yes. All right. For those of you who don't know Brandon, let me tell you just a little bit about him. Just a little bit. He's been called a wonderful composer and a sophisticated player, as well as one of the most unique guitar voices to emerge over the last decade. He's based in Cincinnati with his wife and his brand new baby girl, 4.5 months old. And he performs with, which is she's sitting right there. So she'll be joining the interview soon. So I'll hurry up. But he performs with his groups. He has three groups, right? Am I correct? The Brandon Coleman, yeah, Brandon Coleman Trio and Quartet,
Mhm.
and spherical. Spherical Agenda and
Exactly.
Fourth Kind.
Mhm.
Also plays with saxophonist or saxophonist, however you want to say that, Randy Villars, and Blakesley Quintet and large ensembles. Grammy nominated Dan Pugano Nanek. You have to say that for me. How do you say
Dan
it?
Dan Pugash Nanette.
Pugash Nanette.
Yes.
And the rock band Miller. So he's a busy cat doing all kinds of things. He's also played in lots of great clubs and festivals, and he's conducted master classes throughout North America. If you want to know more about him, please go to his website, brandoncoleman-music.com, and please check out his music and read more about him. So anyway, let's go. I like to start at the beginning, Brandon. How did this all start for you? Your career as a guitarist. At what point you took guitar lessons and you were like, I think I want to do this for a living.
Yeah.
How how did that come about?
That's a good question. I've been playing guitar and music in general since I was 11 years old.
Okay.
Uh, Came from a pretty musical family. Um, a lot of my grandparents, aunts, and uncles played. My mom played a little bit. Just all kinds of different music. People playing country music, bluegrass, pop music. Just a lot of different stuff. And growing up, I played guitar. My grandpa showed me a lot of things, taught me a lot of like finger style guitar, like in the style of Chet.
Oh,
Back.
there we go. There we go.
That was my wife trying to call me in the middle of the.
That's how it goes.
uh, uh, yeah, my grandpa showed me a lot of things, a lot of guitar techniques, and taught me how to learn how to play by ear, which was a really important thing.
Hmm.
And eventually, I decided to go to school for music, so I went to college and studied jazz guitar, both undergraduate and graduate degrees.
Okay.
It was, when I decided to go to school for music, that I knew I wanted to make music a career because I had a long conversation with my dad, and my parents were very supportive about my music from when I was a child. I'm lucky to have that. And,
Hmm.
they said, whatever you choose to study, you're either, if you put everything you got into it and you make sure you work hard and put all your best efforts into it, then you can find success. So,
Mm.
for example, if I would have chosen to be a law degree, do a law degree, I would still had to study up and do well.
Right. That's right. That's right.
I decided that music was my passion, so I wanted to follow that thread,
Uh,
and not ever
okay.
have any regrets about that. So
That's awesome.
I'm glad I chose that path, and I
So
started
would it
playing.
be law? Would it be law if it wasn't music?
Probably not.
No.
It was just like one of the things, when you're young and you're thinking, what will make me the most money?
Yeah, right. It is not music, not necessarily.
But as they
Uh,
say, isn't everything, and I'm
that's right.
perfectly happy to have things grow as they grow, and I'm grateful for what I've been able to achieve. Not the richest man in the world, but I've got a baby here and taking care of her and putting her food in her mouth, so that's the best I can do.
Yes, that's
So
right. That's right.
the but yeah, it's funny because when I decided to go to college, I started working pretty soon after that in gigging and
Hmm.
recording and things like that. I've always had one foot in the music technology realm, so
Okay.
pretty early on, I bought a bunch of recording gear and got into doing that for people too. So on as well as
Hmm.
playing, I was recording friends' bands and mixing and mastering and all that stuff. So that's been a
Mm,
pretty part of my career as well. So it's all been
okay.
fun. The journey, ever growing and ever changing. So
Hmm.
happy.
Hmm.
And you may hear my baby laughing right now.
Yeah, she's like, ah, yeah, right, Dad, right, Dad. I'm getting so much feedback here.
Yeah.
Oh, so how would you describe your style?
I like to think that it encompasses my roots as a musician and my passions from when I was young, and including music, because I've always loved a diverse array of music, partially because of my family members that played and their background and bluegrass music and country and rock. And I even had family members from other countries. Like I had an uncle from Iran who
Mm,
introduced me to some music from his country, and that was amazing and really flipped my lid, and it made me really interested in world music as well.
mm-hmm.
So if there was one cookie cutter word to describe it, I would say eclectic, because I don't try to stay in one style for too long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't call myself a pure bebop old school swing player, but I love doing that. And I don't call myself a fusion player, even though I do love doing that. I love being able to play what I feel at the moment and have all those things kind of come in and out of the playing while we're forming sounds with the band in a live
Mm-hmm.
context. I
That's
think that's
great.
hilarious.
Yeah, she is going at it. She's cool, really. So, are there any musicians that inspire you, and what qualities do you admire about them?
That's a great question. That's a really great way to frame that question. I don't think I've ever been asked that, and I'd say that my first guitar hero, like many guitarists, was Jimi Hendrix,
Mm,
uh, and mostly I think like the theatrics when you're young gets you into this idea of like, oh yeah, he's like a rock star and he's like this like guitar god, and like
mhm.
which is funny because it's like the opposite of my personality. I'm not like a showman. Like I'm not gonna burn my guitar at the jazz festival. Do that. But part
Mhm,
of what I admire about him was the fearless approach. He always doing something new, and I think when I got into jazz music, those were the musicians that I really liked, like Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, in terms of guitarists like
mhm,
Pat Metheny or John Scofield, people who are kind of constantly pushing the boundaries and finding new sounds.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I think those are the musicians for me that really kind of inspired me to create my own sound. Even though I don't necessarily play in this style all the time, a lot of free jazz musicians like Ornette Coleman and
mhm,
Archie Shepp and Albert Ayler, just the way they chose to have a singular sound and approach and kind of create their own vocabulary and language for their own music. I've always really admired that too. Um,
okay.
and yeah, and
Mm,
that list continues to grow and change. I'm always
sure,
listening to new music and discovering new things and
sure.
trying to inform my ear even more. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Um, what's the best piece of advice that you've received that you've ever been given, I guess, from a musician?
One that comes to me all the time, that I try to relay to my students in my own teaching, was my first collegiate guitar teacher was Glenn Ginn down at Morehead State, and I had a tendency to like want to play a lot of really weird stuff all the time because I was like, oh, I'm learning all these fancy tricks, and my tendency was to constantly want to be doing that. And he looked at me one day and said, there can be no inside if it's just outside, or there can be no outside
Mm,
no
if there's just,
inside.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I dig that. That's good.
That's pretty good. I like that. And from that time, it made me really think about the yin and yang of it all, the balance.
Right.
Everything when you're playing music doesn't have to be a look at what I can do moment. It doesn't always have to be about what you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
more about what you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and if that moment takes you there, then go for it. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's not, then just go with the flow. And that really, really changed the way I looked at what how I was improvising and composing even, and my outlook on music, and it's always stuck with me. And I even use it as a mantra if I ever catch myself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
doing too much. I think about that moment and how much that affected me because he had
Right.
such a zen approach to saying it. He was like the greatest teacher in the way he delivered those kind of statements, and I
Right.
always try to pass that on to my own students.
Right.
So.
That's good. That's good. I'm going to write that down and keep it and carry it. Because as singers, sometimes, singers really they want to do a little bit of everything on every every song. So it's hard to pull back for some singers. But I get that. I like that advice. Um, oh my gosh. What's the biggest problem you faced as a musician?
I would say the biggest problem, is just kind of the continual. It's I always try to. I'm going to hold the baby here because
That's fine. Her first interview, one of many.
like I try to talk to is sometimes it's easy to for us to get into this loop of being surrounded by other musicians, so we get in a feedback loop of knowing what our own world is like. So when I'm
Hmm.
talking to my non-musician friends about like what it's like to make a career in music, and I say, how when you're looking for that job you really love, that you want, you get that nice paying job with the benefits and all this stuff, and I'm like, imagine doing that every single day of your life. Like, whether it's you're sitting down to play with a new band,
Right.
trying to make sure you're the guy they want to hire, or if you're trying to get a gig at a venue, or if you're trying to get a review for your album, we're kind of constantly having to prove ourselves every day. And like
Yes.
sometimes it's like even if you've like spent years and years on your craft, you can step into a place where nobody knows who you are, and you have to like everybody's like start from square one, like and
Yes.
every you know
Yes. Yes. I do know that. Every you learn with every step that you take, I guess. You get bigger and better and wiser and stronger and all of that. But yeah, it
yeah.
can be challenging. It is very challenging, and it's not for the weak. It is not for the weak, I've learned. So, what do you think is the most rewarding part of being a musician? Other than
Like
just being creative and being able to get it out.
yeah, I mean, other
Mm,
than the immense joy obviously of performing and
right.
getting to know people and seeing people react positively to music, it's just really the experience and joy of when you, especially my bands have been together for almost a decade now, and the friendships that I've formed through playing with my bandmates is like deepened by performing together, and like
Hmm.
it's great to have friends that you can sit and talk and talk about things, but something special happens when you're making music together and you're not necessarily talking about anything, but you kind of got this telepathic communication going on, like just making musical decisions together. And I don't know that there's anything else in the human experience that quite provides us with that feeling.
Mm,
Um, and music is really special in that regard. And every time we get to play a real nice show where that communication is on, and it's there with the bandmates, but it's also there with the audience. It's like the most gratifying feeling in the world. It's like,
hmm.
and it doesn't really necessarily serve the ego in a way. Like it's not like stroking our ego and saying, "Oh, you're awesome." It's like it's more this feeling like we're all connected and
Right.
everybody's in that happy moment, you know.
Right.
And that's all I'm looking for. You know, I like to make people smile, whether I'm playing music or just hanging out or telling jokes or, you know, hanging out with my
Hmm.
baby. You know,
Yeah.
smiles is for me. So,
How would your bandmates describe you as a band leader?
I'm pretty. I like to think I'm pretty easy-going. You know,
I can
I'm
tell
not.
that though. You're a laid back kind of guy
Yeah, I
from
got
what I've
my.
seen of you. How do you keep them in line though? How do you keep everybody in line?
Funny. I'm really lucky in the regard that the people I've chosen to play with me are somehow super reliable and really into the music, and I've never
That's
had any
good.
problems. I've been really lucky in that way. And I know other band leaders who have not had the same experience. They have to put their foot down, and you
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
um, you know, I think having formed bands based on the bond of strong friendship has really um, made that experience really positive for me. And as a band leader, I would say if I had to guess what Jeff and Matt would have to say about me as a band leader, it would be that I want them to it want it to be a democratic process. You know, I want them to be able to have input too,
Hmm.
because that's the way when we do rehearse. I like them to have input musically, and when we're playing, it's not the Brandon show.
Hmm.
It's all three of us really,
Right.
or all four of us as the quartet, and um, I don't need the spotlight all the time,
Hmm.
whether it's on the stage or if it's in rehearsal. So that's my kind of leadership, I guess, um, and I try to be that way as a sideman too. I try to, you know,
Hmm.
offer things if it's wanted, and if it's not, then I respectfully do my job and
Right.
hang out and try to make music the best it can be.
Okay. Well, you've worked with a lot of people. You've worked with a lot of bands. Is there a dream? Like if somebody called you up and said, "Brandon, I need you," and you would just be like, "Oh yes, I've been waiting for that call."
Oh
Dream
man,
collaboration.
I would love to play with Wayne Shorter one day.
Wayne
Um,
Shorter. Okay.
because of how much his music has affected me and changed the way I write music and the way he improvises and thinks. I feel so connected to that. And when I listen to his music, especially like when I'm listening to like a live concert or a video, I'm like, not in a way that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good enough to play with Wayne Shorter, but I'm like, oh man, I can feel what they're going for. And I feel like if I was on stage with them, I would have something to say too.
All
And
right.
because I've just listened to so much of his music and I know so much of his language from studying his playing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would just love to make music with him one day. That would be amazing. That would be
I
a dream
love
come
it.
true.
I love it. You had it right there too on the tip of your brain. You knew
Oh
it.
yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool. So you've also played in a lot of you played in concert halls, you've played in festivals and small intimate rooms. What's your favorite?
Small intimate rooms all the way.
Mm, okay.
Um, I love being able to see faces and feel that energy of like the closeness of people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's different when like jazz is such an acoustic music. Even though I'm playing like an electric guitar, it's still an acoustic music to hear like the natural vibration of the room. And I always feel like as much as I enjoy playing festivals because they're fun to get in front of that many people, there's something different that happens when it's like a giant sound system and everything's like
Mm-hmm.
inhumanely loud and like all the people are hundreds of feet away and it's just like a little alien feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
it's cool, different experience. But the small room, I would rather play to 10 really stoked and involved people who are there, like hanging on every note, than like 1,000 people who are like, I'm just gonna drink some beer and
Right.
scream at the sun or whatever.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a good answer. Let's
yeah.
see. Um, everyone I've spoken with lately, we cannot go without talking about this pandemic and how it's affected our lives as musicians. Touring musicians. I mean, you had to come to a complete halt. What was your schedule like before the pandemic? Were you traveling a lot?
A lot. I was. going to New York several times a year with different projects, not only my own, but some of the projects that I'm involved in up there. And
Hmm.
um, I was going traveling to northern Indiana to play with the band Miller a lot and recording with them, a lot of recording dates. And I was staying fairly busy. And like right when, early March, when the pandemic like really was becoming reality in the U.S. in
Hmm.
2020, we had a week long tour with Sam Blakesley, his project Wistful Thinking, and we sat there and looked at our text messages as all the gigs just got canceled.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And like this was supposed to be a tour where we toured, and then at the end we were going to spend a week in the studio and record, and we were just all like, what are we going to do? And then like all the gigs for future months got canceled, and it was just insane, and it was scary for sure, but I, after like that initial moment of like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna make happen? Like,
Hmm.
how are we gonna recover from this? I'm never one to like just try to wallow in the depths of despair. So me and my buddies, we tried to make a positive thing out of it and try to figure out how to shift and make things feasible for all of us as musicians. So recording became the focus because that was something we could do both remotely and at our studio that we have in downtown Tennessee. And
Hmm.
so, with Sam's project, we all kind of enforced a self quarantine so that way we could get together and finish the album. And we did, and that came out, and it's really awesome. That's called The Long Middle by Sam Blakesley and Wistful Thinking.
Okay.
Um, and then, we finished the Spherical Agenda album during the pandemic. Uh, I've recorded a bunch of new quartet music and fourth kind music that still hasn't been released yet. I'm still finishing that up, and yeah,
She's so
you
cute.
know the
Mm.
and just recording was such a big focus, and I got called to do some work for film and TV. One of my friends out in LA splits his time between LA and Louisville, where I did my grad degree. Works closely with some films and shows on Netflix. So I got to do some guitar parts for some of the soundtracks, but also doing some other work involving the production of that too. So that was really helpful, and it was a side of my skill set that I hadn't gotten to exercise because I spent so much time on the road before.
Hmm.
And it honestly, I don't want to say I was getting tired of performing, but I was getting tired of constantly performing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it came to a
Yeah.
time where I was ready to kind of shift my career, anyways, because I was ready to start a family. And
Right.
me and my wife have been married for a while, and we've been talking about having a baby and buying a house and all those things. And the shift came and allowed
Hmm.
those things to happen. And now it's not so much constantly touring, and of course we're still in the tail end, hopefully what's the tail end of the pandemic. So
Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah,
hard to it's hard to tell, isn't it?
it's hard to tell, but like gigs now need to have meaning for me, like
uh,
meaningful gigs. And
hmm.
trying to take be able to say no to certain things so that way I can save time for performances to be special ones,
Mm.
where I'm getting to share my music. I'm not going to try to bust my butt to go get a gig that nobody's going to listen. I want to make sure I'm playing important gigs where I get to present my art or somebody else's art,
Hmm.
and have it be listened to and appreciated. So
Okay.
that's kind of been my mantra for surviving the COVID woes as a musician.
It's rough. Really rough. So you have a pandemic baby out of all of it.
Yeah.
So you did. That's wonderful. Um, so, well, you recorded 4 singles in 2021, right? Am I
Yeah, that sounds right.
correct? About right? You have let's see, what do I have here? Phobos
Uh-huh.
and Black Omen, featuring Brian Donahoe and Matt Wiles,
Yeah.
and Fusion, KK Fusion.
Oh yeah. That's a cute
Okay.
one.
Is that oh okay. All right, all right. And you also have some other singles, The Watchmaker and Aquatic.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have your album.
Hmm.
Is in your opinion, is the music industry changing so much that albums are becoming not as important as just releasing singles?
I think that, that's the way things are moving as a whole. Like,
Yeah.
if my goal was to get, as many people involved in listening to my music as possible, that I think singles would be the route, because I think that's the way the masses digest music nowadays. Like, the
Mhm.
album experience isn't as important. And the reason lately I've been putting out singles is because a lot of these things that I pop out on Bandcamp or on Spotify are kind of like random one-off things that I decided to do as a fun little project and don't really fit on an album. So I just like
Mm.
out there as a single. But I'm still such a fan of the album experience. Listening to an album from top to bottom. And I love albums that kind of have a thread that runs through them. So that's why
Mhm.
I've had all this music with Fourth Kind and my quartet and even the trio that I've yet to put out, because I'm still in the process of like the production end of certain things, and even needing to record a few more tunes and lay it out in a way that it artistically flows from beginning to end.
Mm.
Because I'm such a fan of that, and um, I kind of have, this is another one of my own, like, self-imposed kind of rules of music for myself. It's not for anybody else unless they believe it too. But I've started to become concerned not less with converting people to liking my music, but rather finding the people in the world that just think like I do, that may enjoy the kind of music that I like to make. Because what I've found is it's a lot harder to convince somebody that what you're doing is good. But it's a lot easier when you find people that have like minds just to be
Mhm.
on your team. And
Mhm.
since I love that album concept of not necessarily like a jazz opera or a story album, just the artistic picture of that full set of songs being a thing, you know, kind of blue, like everybody knows that album,
Yeah.
but it's like you can't really listen to that album like one song. Like, it's not the kind of blue experience when
True.
it's just one song taken out of context. It's like when you listen to that whole album, it's like that's Miles Davis creating a cool jazz style and like vocal
Mhm.
jazz style. When I first heard Mahavishnu Orchestra's Birds of Fire, that was like my first introduction to like fusion music. And that whole album, top to bottom, has an energy that I might not have really been affected the same way if I just heard one track.
Mm.
But hearing that whole album was like, whoa, that's a thing. It's like an experience. So
Right.
all about that. And with the two full albums that we put out last year, the Spherical Agenda album, actually that came out this year, and Sam Blakesley's album Wistful Thinking. Both of those albums have very unique sound landscapes that is like particular to those albums. So like when you listen to the album from the top to bottom, it's very cohesive, and it has like a particular, takes you to a certain place,
Mhm.
throughout the length of the album, and it's best digested in its entirety.
All right. It's hard for me to find an album that I want to hear every song on these days. I don't, I'm sorry, you know, but there are some. So, um, what are you planning for the Winter Jazz Series?
So we'll be playing a handful of music, some originals of mine, but also a healthy dose of jazz standards. When I'm playing with the trio, it's a great opportunity to reinterpret, some of the songbook standards and jazz standards that I really love. Um, when I'm playing that kind of material, we never talk about what we're gonna do. That's the fun.
Hmm.
Is I like to leave it completely open. If I start playing "Darn That Dream," it could be in 3/4, it could be in 4/4, it could be in 5/4, whatever. But I trust that my guys are going to pick up what I'm laying down. So I never count off tunes. I just start playing and they follow. And that's kind of like in a way, I'm trying to follow the tradition of great piano trios like Bill Evans or Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, many of the great pianists in that regard of just kind of getting really creative with the standard repertoire. But then also, I have a few original compositions that we've been playing for a long time, and we like to do the same thing with those as well. So
Okay.
it's really fun. We like to we like to take you to outer space and back, but also we love to swing and make it feel good and groove and have a good time and put smiles on faces. So we're looking forward
Well,
to it. It'll be really fun.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. We had such a good time at the Summer Jazz Series. I said I got to have Brandon back because your bassist was not there. Although you guys were amazing still, but I wanted to hear the original trio. So I'm excited to see you guys this Thursday. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time out this evening to talk to me and share your musical journey. And I want to encourage everybody to go to Bandcamp and all of the other music outlets and purchase Brandon's music. Purchase the music, okay? Purchase the music. You can follow him on Facebook and Instagram at Brandon Coleman Guitar. And he also has a YouTube channel, Brandon Scott Coleman.
Yep.
Right. And his website is brandoncoleman-music.com. Right. All right. Do you have a Twitter account as well? I didn't notice Twitter.
I don't really use it. I'm so bad at Twitter, mostly
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I like to talk a lot, so
Mm-hmm.
Twitter limits.
Well, that's all right. We got you. Oh, you're talking. Okay, we got Facebook and Instagram, and your YouTube account is the most important one anyway. So follow him and come on out Thursday to see his trio, the Brandon Coleman Trio, at Holy Grounds, 825 Wayne Avenue in Dayton, Ohio. We'll be starting at 7 o'clock and we'll go to about 9 o'clock. I'm sure you will enjoy it. You can get your tickets at jazzvoices.org. All right. Oh, I am too. If you enjoyed the interview today, please leave a thumbs up and a comment. Subscribe to the channel to be notified about more Jazz Voices live interviews. Join Jazz Voices mailing list at jazzvoices.org. Listen to Jazz Voices every Friday at 1 o'clock on WDPS 89.5, Dayton's home for jazz. I'll be playing lots of jazz vocals on Fridays. All right, here we go. And Brandon, thanks for your time this evening. And I'll see you Thursday. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you for more Jazz Voices. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. We will see you later then.
Sounds good.